Welcome to Innovation Station. My name is Mia Sage, and today I'm here in the studio with Martin Sage. Welcome, Martin.
It's my pleasure, Mia. Very excited. It's a amazing topic, innovation.
I know, right? I've studied this topic now for nearly 20 years.
No, exactly 20 years.
Let me think back. Oh, you're right. It's exactly 20
like
years.
this month is literally the 20th anniversary of your,
Oh my God.
the beginning of your study.
Time flies, huh?
Yeah, it's fun, right? Isn't it interesting?
And you, I think, have been on this team for 50 years?
Oh, that's not possible. I'm only 39. Or at least that's when I lost count. No, it's true. I finished my doctoral work in 1975, and I started a dissertation. And all of psychology was about what's wrong with people, and I was only interested in what's right about people. How brilliant are people?
And I've watched you do that for so many years now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just beautiful to see how people around you start to become what they truly are.
Mm-hmm. The first few years, few decades, I just interviewed people one after another, well over 100,000 people. And you know, because you're storing all the tapes, the VCRs, the Hi8s, all the different formats. And they taught me so much that you could never learn in a textbook. You could never learn it by reading about it or reading a business journal. But when you're talking with really bright people and looking for what makes them come alive with excitement, that's interesting.
I know, I was looking at them last week actually, and it's so funny when you see all the different formats. Now, of course, it's all on internal cards from the cameras.
Yeah.
But back in the day, I mean, we just have every decade,
Yeah.
VHS, Hi8, of course, with audio cassettes, all the mini tapes. And there's a whole office just full of them. One shelf after another, after another, after another.
Drawers upon shelves, upon, and then when you came on board, everything went weird.
Wait. What are you trying to say with that?
You came in with a computer. And then we have interviewed another easily over 100,000 more people to ask them what makes them curious and what's their innovation. What do you have that's unique? What do you have that's different?
And these days, most people, when they talk about innovation, they're talking about incremental innovation.
Yes.
Which has, of course, value, but it's not the same as what we're talking about when we say innovation.
Right. Yes. People are troubled. As a psychologist, I learned all about that. I could diagnose you, anyone if you like. I'm quite good at it.
No, but thank you.
But I'm not interested in it. I could diagnose Einstein. I could diagnose Steve Jobs, and there would be something wrong with them from the view of classical psychology, which is what I trained. But then I did it for a few years, and I saw all the ways people get on the wrong path. People can make tremendous progress in their life. But if they're going in the wrong direction, they're going to go a long way toward where they don't want to be.
Yeah.
And that's where innovation goes. And it's because your boss knows what's wrong with you, your coworkers know what's wrong with you, your friends and family know what's wrong with you. Who knows what you've got in there that's just pure genius? That's Steve Jobs, that's Einstein, that's something entirely new. And how do we find that? Well, interviewing all those people, they gave us feedback when the questions didn't light them up, make them feel brilliant. And we sorted through that, and they taught us how to make dialogue, how to ask the right questions, and along the way, we come up with something a little more complex.
I like how you say that. And some of it is right behind us here. Yeah.
Yeah, the beginning of it was a whole emotional spectrum, all the stages that people go through on their way to discovering their true curiosity, what they're really madly curious about. And as we took all those responses, we measured them out, we sequenced them, spent hundreds of hours, and then when you came on board, it actually got very precise. You are German, right?
I was born there anyway, yeah.
Yeah. And what we find is, people say, well, if you want to be a writer, you've got to be depressed and you've got to go through terrible things, and completely the opposite of what we found. When people are like children, not childish but childlike, and then they play, so we learn to ask questions instead of trying to teach people something, create projects that they can do together, that unexpected qualities emerge. Take a bunch of executives, put them on Broadway. I actually had to put a theater there to do that, right on Times Square. That's where we met, right? And put those guys on stage and say, okay, there's a crowd coming in. We've already sold the tickets, and by this evening, you guys have to have a show ready for them. And then talk to them, ask them questions, see who they are, and don't give them any time to rehearse. And see what happens. Well, what happened?
It was amazing.
It was amazing. You watched people who were very good at reductionist thinking suddenly become very good at divergent thinking. You saw nerds, engineers, people who were, let's say, socially inappropriate or misguided in some way. I think of one guy who, I always remember him standing like way too close.
I remember that too. And then when I stepped back, he would follow and make another step. Yeah, just no sense of social distancing, anything like that. Very sweet man, but quite nerdy. Yeah.
And mildly annoying in a way.
Yeah.
And let's say, he as we drew near to the performance time, I worked with him, talked with him about what they were going to do in this 30-day training. And then they said, well, when are we going to rehearse? And I said, oh, well, it's dinner time. Go to dinner and come back with a show. And suddenly, let's say there was no time for them to think. And that's important. That's important. I was listening to Arnold Schwarzenegger talk about waking up in the morning, and before he had time to think, hops on his bicycle, rides through traffic to the gym, and he says, as you ride along, your pictures dissolve, and the images that you see, life becomes more colorful and more vivid. And then you get to the gym and you work out for an hour, and that feels good. You get the blood pumping. And then you ride back through traffic. You don't have a mood. You feel great. You haven't had time to think about anything. You're having to keep your eyes out on the world. You have to see what's going on instead of what you think. And if a driver honks a horn and is mad at you, you wave, you're friendly, there's no attitude building up. He said, then you get home and have breakfast. Now, there will come a time that you need to think, but you don't want to start your day that way. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't agree more with that. Tom Watson was the founder of IBM, and he had the word think in big letters all over the place. And it was the right thing for that time. Then Steve Jobs came along and created Apple Computer and sort of wiped IBM off the desk. And he had another slogan, think different. Well, it's only a decade or two later, and those are both way too slow. Daniel Kahneman, a psychologist, won a Nobel Prize in economics by doing an experiment that shows that thinking slowly through a thing and being accurate and fastidious doesn't work at all. And neither does thinking fast. Either way, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, mm-hmm. and you're going to do the wrong thing. Yeah. What's the alternative? Well, you can't say to people, don't think. I mean, that doesn't really make sense to anybody, right?
Not so much.
Sometimes when I start a class, I have a water bottle. I take a sip out of it, and then I toss it into the air. And suddenly you see this room full of executives, and they're all sitting there, listening to me for a few minutes and starting to immediately form ideas, what they're going to get out of the course, what they're going to bring to the course. And suddenly that water bottle is hovering in the air over them. And all these hands reach up in the air, and nobody wants that water bottle. I leave it open, Nobody wants that. So everybody reaches for that, and of course they catch it. Somebody catches it. And I say, you guys just became a team. I think you've already completed the workshop. Then I pick up the chair, the one you're sitting in, those heavy chairs, and I act like I'm going to throw it. And people, you think people would go, but you know what they do? Is he going to throw that massive oak chair? And that people, so I look around and I see, all right, who can handle it? I figure out, I say, can you handle this? I can. And I easy toss the chair up, and everybody's attention is right there, focused. I've never had anybody drop the chair. Mm-hmm. Never had an accident, never had a problem. And I say, you just became a high performance team. It's very quick like that. It's quicker than you can think. Did you know that the hand is quicker than the eye?
What?
Yeah. Watch this.
How do you come up with this stuff?
I don't know. Because I don't know how to think. You put people, you challenge people in a playful way, and all of a sudden they're one mind, one focus. Many highly intelligent people, all very different from each other, but one mind, and then one heart, and then one motion, one movement together. And now you've got the conditions for innovation, for seeing things in a new way. Everybody's on the same page. You're a musician, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I play the violin and the piano.
Oh, those are easy.
Well, people say that the piano is not too hard, but the violin is known to be very complicated. Just to make a natural, nice sounding tone can take you months to learn. I remember this when I was a little girl, and I'm still very sorry for my neighbors. If you're listening, excusez-moi. I mean, it's scratchy and
squeaky. The squeaks, the squawks. It hurts my ears.
Yeah, at least with the piano you can do like this, and it's a normal sound. But then you have the complexity of two hands and playing different themes at the same time. So yeah, music can be challenging.
There's a popular saying in all the business journals: if you want to lead people in the age of innovation, you have to understand them. You can't understand people. Every person, I'm not going to say a difference between men and women, I'm going to say every person is so radically different from every other person that we don't fit easily into categories.
Yeah.
Now, how do you get all of those instruments, all of those intelligences in the same key, on the same page? How do you synchronize people's brilliance? And how many of those people have literal handicaps? Or maybe you say, well, that guy, he's lazy. Well, maybe he's not lazy. Maybe he has a nature for deep thought. So you got to take all kinds of people, but they've all got to be on the same page, the same measure, the same key, the same rhythm, and that's where innovation comes from.
Yeah, another example is I had a guy in my class, and he was fidgeting all the time, and he couldn't sit still. And I think people thought he's not really paying attention, or he's distracted. But once we got to know him better, it became very clear he has a physical intelligence, and it really is instinctive and guides him very well. But it's not what you would think of when you're in school as a high intelligence. So to your point that everybody is so different.
Yeah. From this view of human beings, dyslexia becomes a superpower. Do you know how many great entrepreneurs and business leaders have dyslexia or have
autism?
Autism. I knew there was something wrong with me from early on.
Yeah.
I didn't get the grades. I didn't fit in. I had no social skills. And when the school bus arrived at school, I would sit in terror on the school bus, looking at all of those people, and hard for me to get up and get off that bus and walk into that crowd. Almost impossible. I literally made it to school 2 to 3 days per week. The other days I could not overcome it. And I knew there's something wrong or something different. Then I thought it was wrong. And not until I had a child who was autistic and saw the reflection, and then I went, oh my God, I'm not normal. And neither was Einstein. You know that I can't get on a bus and make change.
Yeah.
I'm immediately overcome with anxiety.
Yeah.
It freaks me out, and I put the money in my hand, hold it out, and I hope the bus driver has a heart.
Yeah.
And all the people are, I can't think like that, And yet, when I found my calling, my interest in human dynamics, I love human dynamics because you don't have to, you don't have to mix up with people very much. You're literally dealing with the dynamic of the relationship, not with the individuals. And then when you're dealing with multiple relationships that form teams, now you're doing high mathematics. That for me is just a breeze. I can do that stuff. I can look at a herd of cows or a business team, and within a couple of sweeps of the eyes, I've read that and done the math, and I see exactly where those relationships are trying to go. And it's instantaneous recognition.
And there's a lot of pattern recognition involved.
You would call it that, yeah.
And then obviously, if something changes just with one person, it changes the whole dynamic, right. Which most people don't realize. Right. So let's say you have a team of 10 people, and one of them has something going on at home. Maybe their child is sick or something like that. Now you don't see that child in the team, but just that fact changes the dynamic of your team.
Yep. Yep. Your first book was about communication, feminine patterns of communication, masculine patterns of communication. And it's noteworthy that some men all enjoy watching sports or video games or something that a lot of women, they wonder about it.
I remember when we were in Berlin and the 2006, I think it was, and the soccer world championship was happening there, and it was incredible. Just all the people on the streets and the excitement, and obviously the men are a bit more excited than the women. But it did bring us in. The whole country was on fire.
Yep. We were very lucky to be in the Berlin, in the Sony Center with glass floor to ceiling and looking down into the center of the whole thing. And there's Pele on stage with all the greats from different ages.
Right.
And we got the front row seat, you walk out on the balcony, you could hear and you could feel the crowd. And I think what, let's say, men understand instinctively, you're not watching, think about American football. Let's run or basketball. Let's use a zone defense, or let's use a man-on-man defense. Or in football, let's use the blitz. The blitz came from the Chicago Bears. They invented it after World War II, and they modeled it, funny enough, after the German military blitz. And now it's all known. And you can see when men know when a team lines up, they're going to run the blitz, both teams have sets of patterns that they use to keep each other, to deceive each other, to get the ball passed. And men aren't just watching the game and making a hero out of the players. They're watching incredibly complex patterns. And it's really a sense of whoever wins. I remember sitting with a bunch of Germans the year that Spain beat them in the World Cup.
Oh.
And as the Spanish people walked by yelling and cheering, the German people were applauding them.
Yeah.
I
do think I remember that as well. We were in Spain.
Yeah.
Yes, and then some of the Germans came over and said, "Congratulations, great game."
Right.
So there's a great sportsmanship.
Right. And let's say men live, if a ship sinks and you got 50 men and 50 women and 10 lifeboats, we all know who's going in the lifeboats, okay?
Yeah.
So men in our role of life, in life, we have to understand patterns of things. We don't want that ship to sink.
Yeah.
If that ship catches on fire, we've got a fire brigade going really fast, bucket to bucket, water to water. And so pattern recognition is a matter of innovating to survive. Here you got a wooden vessel in an ocean of water, and there's a fire. Innovation appears, and innovation comes out of those kind of situations. Okay.
Innovate or evaporate.
Innovate or evaporate. That's the name of your course, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Innovate or evaporate. Yeah. When Johnny Ives brought the iPhone idea to Steve Jobs, Jobs was appalled. Hey, I've been fired from my own company. I'm back. I've got the Mac going. Well, a few weeks later, Jobs went to a doctor, and the doctor said, "You have pancreatic cancer and only a short time to live." What came to his mind? The iPhone.
Right.
Suddenly, the implications that his computers, there was IBM, Compaq, Microsoft, all different companies. Sony made computers, and the Mac had some advantages, but it's still just a computer. It's not that much better. And when he got the diagnosis, there was a brilliant flash. There was a moment where he thought, or I don't know what he thought, but there's a moment when he realized if he was going to leave a legacy, and immediately what came to his mind was the iPhone. Now he introduced it, 2007, several months later.
In June 2007.
Yeah. And do you know anybody who doesn't have a cell phone?
No.
How would you survive without that supercomputer in your pocket? Now, when he saw this innovation, and he realized, remember when he started out, he wasn't trying to make a lot of money. He wanted to change the world and make the world a better place. And suddenly he realized the potential of the iPhone to put billions of people in contact with each other. And he brought his team together and he said, let's get this. Now came boldness, so it came action, then boldness, then major curiosity, how can this work? And then drive, discipline. And they worked, I mean, the famous thing is there were a lot of divorces because some guys never got to go home.
Yeah.
And they were compelled to get that thing to market. And in the next year, 2008, when the banks crashed, the iPhone hit the scene.
Right.
Everyone lost faith in the banking industry. They've never recovered it, by the way. Never recovered that trust. And suddenly everybody trusts that little device in their pocket. Now that's innovation. And does it take a shock? Yeah, it does. Does it have to be such a upsetting, powerful one? No. Anything that gives you the element of surprise. Like, imagine tickling yourself. No, that's not going to happen. Now tell yourself a joke and see if you feel like laughing.
Oh, I'm so bad at jokes. I can't even make other people laugh. This is not going to work.
But if somebody else reaches over there, suddenly you have the element of surprise.
Right.
But the key is now to turn that moment to create with that duration, to go into a 4-dimensional thinking pattern where you can sustain the element of surprise, moment to moment, day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. Now you've got the conditions for innovation. And thinking has a very small part to play in that. And understanding yourself and others. I mean, Sun Tzu said it, if you understand yourself and your enemy, you don't have to fear the outcome of 1,000 or 100 battles. Yeah, that was fine in his day, but he didn't have an iPhone, did he? It's not a matter of understanding yourself or other people. It's really a matter of, it's not about you. Getting your attention off yourself and on a collective vision that you're picking up from the people around you. You're looking at the experience of the end user. Steve Jobs said that. He said, when you're building a product, think about the experience of the end user. Well, the problem with incremental innovation, a certain car company, BMW, they put seat warmers in their car. Nice when you live in Germany, right? Don't you want your seat to be warm?
Yeah.
But now here's the innovation. Anytime you want to use it, you got to dial in on your car and turn it on, and they charge you for the electricity for your own seat warmer. What an innovation. How earth-shaking is that? And people loved it? No. So a company has an imperative, make profits. So they come up with gadgets and gadgets, all designed to increase their profits, but what happens is they put the customer, they don't look at the end user. They don't
Right.
they don't look at somebody getting in their cold car in the morning and the seat's cold, and now they got to dial it in. They're not thinking about what is that person going through.
Right.
And if you don't start at the end, if you don't see the whole thing all at once, reductionist thinking is a very important part of it, but it can't be all of it. You got to see the whole thing with all of its parts and with the experience of the end user. Now you've got something. And you do that by interviewing 100,000 people and seeing how do you shock the out of them. Every person comes on that screen from anywhere now, from anywhere in the world, thanks to Skype and Zoom, and you have the screen full of business people, and job one is to give them a shock that they all reach for that water bottle, but you got to do it through the screen. And then you got a visual image of the facial expressions, the body movements, the emotions, the feelings, the conditions that get people to synchronize. Mm-hmm. Suddenly they're all on the same page and they're with you. Mm-hmm. And you can do courses online. Most things you watch, the average attention span, TikTok, 10 seconds, 9,
it's very
8,
short.
7. But with your work, they're on there for hours and hours and hours, and you're surprising them, they're surprising you, they're surprising each other until they create duration, until the element of surprise becomes the governing dynamic of that system. Nobody's even close. You've got the inside track on innovation.